Hello and welcome to another episode of Mastering Adam. My name is Casper Stockham, and Mastering Adam is a show to help you become the best Adam for your Eve. And it looks like our Facebook Lives are working today, so that's good. We are live on Facebook, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, and on, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Oh, and Twitter, live on Twitter as well. So I have a very special guest with me today. He's a good friend of mine. We were just talking about how long we've known each other for at least 10 years or so, Lonnie Poindexter, and I'll be introducing him to you in just a second. First thing I want to do is give a shout out to our sponsors for the podcast. I Am Love Builders, and we just wrote a book called Divorce Proofing Your Marriage, and it is on Amazon.com. You can grab that on Amazon. And we also have a free ebook that we released, and that's free from our website. So you can go to IamLoveBuilders.com to get a free copy of the ebook. It has the first 5 chapters of the book, which are jam-packed with great information. So you can get that for free. So we're excited for you to be able to do that. All right. So let me introduce you to my guest. Lonnie is the founder and president of the Lion Chasers Network and a member of the Content of Your Character series. So there are some really awesome people that are also speakers on this series, and I know probably half of them personally. So that's a good group of folks to be with there, Mr. Lonnie. So if you would, sir, please kind of introduce yourself to my audience, and we'll get into the topic.
Well, thank you, Brother Casper, for the invitation, and excited about being on your show. And it just occurred to me, we need to get you onto the Content of Character series as a list of speakers. And so I'll put that on my to-do list when I reach out to the rest of the members of that team.
Absolutely.
But man, I don't know where to start. Other than to say that, you and I met, it's about 10 years ago or so. And I was in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Where I hosted a Christian political radio show. The two things they say you should never talk about singularly, let alone collectively.
Exactly.
And I talked about both of those on that show. And that was a part of American Family Radio, which is the nation's largest Christian radio network.
Yeah.
And it was under their new brand at the time, Urban Family Talk, which is a brand that specifically addressed the demographic of folks with a darker paint job, Black folk. Bringing the message that you and I hold near and dear, a message of reminding them of their conservative values.
Yes.
So had a great time on that. I had no background in mass media or radio or television or anything like that. All those things where God just kind of grabbed you by the collar and said, hey, son, look. And he had to get my attention first. I was like, wait a minute, I'm busy. I'm doing this, Lord.
Right.
So he got my attention in that unique way he can do. He can do that. And I started doing that there and really enjoyed it. I found that it was something that I was uniquely suited to.
Yeah.
And I prospered in it. And from there, migrated into doing television. I was doing television out of Southwest Texas for God's Learning Channel, basically taking that same message, but in a television format. And out of Texas, enjoyed doing that. And then, God got my attention again. It said, I'm a California boy, born and raised. And so I moved back to California. I've got elderly parents. I've got a 92-year-old father and a 90-old, soon to be 91-year-old mother.
Yeah.
Her birthday's in November. And so I came back to California for that and to address some other issues.
Yeah.
And but got involved with an organization, and these are people that I'm sure, Cass, you know in our network.
Yeah.
Kevin McGarry, and Kevin McGarry is president of the Frederick Douglass Foundation of California, and also Kevin is a techie, and so he was a Silicon Valley guy like I was.
Yeah.
And he and Neil Mammon, who's another Silicon Valley guy who just happens to be Christian, and they were both Christian, and they got this idea to launch a platform that began to address some of the push you back on the false narrative that's out there.
Sure.
And that false narrative has to do with wokeism.
Yeah.
And so they've written books on this. And so I joined their organization. I've been with them for about a year, and I am having a ball because they are fearless. And so they stir up that rebellious spirit in me. Well, I don't know if it's rebellious, but just boldness to speak.
Boldness, yeah.
And so that's what we're addressing today. And I'm really excited about being a part of their organization and traveling with them, some of the things that we're doing throughout the country. So you should get those two brothers on your show as well, because
I'd love to.
Yeah, they are family men or married men and family men, and I think would add a something to your platform.
Yeah.
They're also both ordained pastors.
Oh wow.
Yeah, as well as rabble rousers. So
yes, please make that connection. That'd be awesome.
I sure will, man. I sure will.
All right, very good.
That's it. Whole lot in between, but that's basically it. And I'm just, it's one of those things where, and I can ramble a little bit. I had a microphone as a radio guy. That's why they gave me a show. I like to.
That's why I say guest host, because sometimes.
So I like to talk. But it's really interesting when you get to a point in life where you say, okay, Lord, what do you want me to do?
Right.
And it took me a while to get to that point, even to the point where the Lord told me what I'm going to be doing. Mm-hmm. I know there's some things you want to do, son. I'm just going to paraphrase.
Right.
You want to do those things. I'm going to let you do them, but you need to understand it's only for a season.
Yeah. I've been there. Yeah. I've been there for sure.
You've been there.
Oh, yeah.
So and for me, it came in a unique way. I guess to everybody it's unique, but it came to me in a unique way in the form of a visiting pastor who had affinity for, he was gifted in the area of prophecy. Mm-hmm. He could read people's mail.
Wow.
And I had attended a church that had some elders that had those gifts, but not like this guy.
Yeah.
And so the things he shared with me were things that only I knew about, and I knew that he knew.
Right.
But basically told me there's things you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to let you do those things, but it's only for a season.
Yeah.
You need to understand that.
Yeah.
And he said, you can do those things. Something with computers, young man, is what the pastor said.
Yeah.
You're going to be very successful. It's going to overtake you. But understand it's only for a season.
Yeah.
So from that point forward, I'll never forget, it was in 1990, I think it was, or 91.
Mm-hmm.
And I went away going, okay. And here's what he said. He said, don't look to man. Don't look to the pulpit, but look to God and he'll make it plain and make it so.
Wow.
I memorized it. I got it on back. Just so far back, they had cassettes then, right?
Yeah.
So I memorized that. But I got to tell you, everything that man shared with me way back then has come to pass. And I remember when it finally hit me, I'm in DC, and I finally understood the part where he said, don't look to man, don't look to the pulpit, look to God.
Yeah.
Because folks have always told me that I had ministerial gifts. Some folks would say I'm supposed to be a pastor. So I had to bounce that around and talk to people. But he explained to me, and it's much like where you are, my brother. I guess the reason why I'm saying this is that God has called all of us as the chosen, if you will.
Yeah.
But some are set aside, but we have specific purposes. And so traditionally, everybody thinks that everybody that's got a calling on their life, they're supposed to be a pastor and have a church and so forth.
Right.
But when that man said, don't look to man, don't look to the pulpit, look to God, I understood when I got to DC, because I was involved with ministry. I was with a nonprofit when I got there.
Mm-hmm.
I was interacting with clergy all across the country.
Right.
And then God said, okay, I'm going to give you a radio platform to reach out to those same members of clergy. So here I am today. I'm not an ordained minister,
Right.
but you know who I hang out with?
Ordained ministers.
Pastors.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Those are my
Yeah.
road dogs. And so I just to sum up, because I can go on here, I am the chief edifier for the pastoral community. And so I'm their rah-rah guy. I'm their hype man, if you will. And it's to remind them of the intersection between faith and public policy.
Yeah.
And because that's what we're doing with the organization I'm with Kevin McGarry's organization, which is called EBLM, is the acronym, but it stands for Every Black Life Matters.
Okay.
And there's a reason why we had that nomenclature. We stole that from BLM.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
to use it against them.
Yeah.
But getting the message out that in the time and the day that we're in, we must be active from the local level to the city, to the state, and at the federal level. And that's what the church, and specifically within the church, I would be so bold as to say the men need to do, because the foolishness that's going on today is largely because of what we're not doing.
Right.
You operate in that realm of what you do. And you're also excited when you were running for office. Every time you decide to run, because that's how you have to do it. You got
to keep at it. And that's why back in August, I was really not thinking about a podcast at the time, at least a singular podcast.
Yes.
My wife and I do marriage coaching and counseling, and we were talking about doing a podcast together again. But the Lord dropped in my spirit, we need to go after the male man. We need to get the male man back in alignment with God. So, and that was part of the emphasis for this podcast. And when I started out, I was thinking how many men we'd be able to help. And what's fascinating to me, at least, is that, see, I've been on every podcast, right? Because I'm the host, right? And I've had guest hosts come in. But there's been a morphing or a transition even of myself during this process, because I'm talking to people like yourself and other men out there that are just on fire, and I've been growing through this series. So I would encourage anyone to go back, and all of these are on YouTube, they're on Twitter, they're on Rumble, they're everywhere. Just type in Mastering Adam and you'll be able to find them. In fact, we are live on Facebook right now. So if you have any questions for myself or Lonnie, please type it in the Facebook chat, and I'll be happy to address them if we have time, because as Lonnie mentioned, he loves to talk. So the third mistake is what we want to cover today, at least in part, and that is not providing for their families and themselves. And I started out this series talking about men, or Adam was put in the garden, and his first commandment by God, Adam by himself, his first commandment was to work.
Yes.
To get busy, to tend the garden, to name the animals. And so he had a job. And I think the male man today has lost the focus on being able to provide for the family, to being able to get out there and make something happen. It doesn't necessarily mean a job, but it just means you need to be active, not sitting on the couch waiting for your baby's mama to bring some food home, or bring home the bacon, right? You need to be out there being industrious, creating something, building something. And that's kind of where this podcast is focused. What are your thoughts on that, Lonnie?
I think you hit the nail on the head. I was typing. It's showing my age now. I was writing down some notes, and a few things came to me. The one that really struck me, and I underlined it, and what you're speaking on is patriarchy.
Mm-hmm.
And we as men, there were examples of it everywhere. Now it's under attack.
Right.
If we look at what's happening within media and schools, and the utter foolishness that's taking place.
Right.
And so men and masculinity are under attack.
Mm-hmm.
And this new term, toxic masculinity. And I was raised by a toxic masculine male.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah, and thank God I was,
Hmm.
and instilled things in me that became second nature to me. And it was really interesting when I moved to DC. One of the things I noticed is going to different events, political and otherwise,
Hmm.
is the young men that I would run across at those events
Yeah.
were feminized. And I don't mean that they were feminized in the sense they were, you know, that type,
Yeah.
but in the sense that they didn't even understand some of the basic rudiments to masculinity,
Yeah.
therefore their role and what they're supposed to do, and like you're saying, not providing for their families and themselves.
Yeah.
And so and there's a group of them, and you might have met some of them in some of the circles that we traveled in,
Mhm.
and they weren't married.
Right.
um, there were women around them,
Hmm.
and even though that we shared the same political values,
Hmm.
there was a disconnect in that area. They didn't even know how to interact with the women that were in that circle.
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
saw that disconnect. I go, oh my God, we are in bad shape. Now I know those that, let's say, are on the left side of the aisle, those issues just permeate because, largely because of their worldview. But
Right.
I was surprised to see it within the circles of folks who have our collective worldview.
Mhm.
And so I would tell some of my peers, they said, well, those guys they're gay. I said, no, I don't think that they're gay.
Yeah.
They're just feminine.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because when I was growing up, my dad never hugged, like
Mhm,
never hugged.
mhm.
Right. Shake hands. That's it.
Was he
Uh,
military?
yes.
I was
Yeah.
ready to
He
say,
was.
yeah, my dad was Army.
He was former Army and stuff, and he would just shake hands. Right.
Uh-huh.
My older brother, he was Navy, but also the same way. Even up until he just passed away a couple of years ago, but even up until recently, when he was alive, all I could do is shake his hand. Now I wanted to hug him, right? Because he's my older brother. I loved him. I wanted to hug my dad, but they were super uncomfortable with that.
Yes.
Now, contrary to that, have you ever met Louis Gohmert,
The politician.
the politician,
Yes, I
former
have met him.
congressman?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you met him in a personal setting, but he is a hugger.
Yes,
I
he
mean,
is. Yeah, you're right. He is.
he's a hugger, man. I didn't even know this cat, right? And we were at the Republican convention. I think it was in Cleveland or somewhere.
Uh-huh.
And I saw him and stuff. I introduced him. I told him I was running for Congress, and he said, "Oh, bless you!" And he just started hugging me. So, but you can be. My point is, you can be that person because I like to hug too, right? I hug.
Yes,
If I saw you again, we give you the bro shake and the hug, right?
exactly.
But there's a difference between that and being feminine, right?
Uh-huh.
There's a masculine hug and affection, and there's a feminine hug and affection. I think that's what you're referring to.
That's exactly what I'm referring to. I was, like I said, blessed enough to be raised by a so-called um, toxic masculine male,
Mm-hmm.
and my dad's a hugger,
Okay.
and
Was
it
he
was
always that way, or now?
yeah, it was yeah, he always was that
Okay.
way. I was very fortunate, but at the same time, because of his military background, that would kick in as well.
Yeah.
And that part, it took me a while to figure out. And so I would have a lot of phone calls to my grandmother, to
Yeah.
talk about my dad, and she would explain things to me. But he's a hugger.
Mhm.
But the reason why he was a hugger is because he didn't get that when
Yeah.
he was growing up.
Yeah.
And so he said that everything that he didn't get when he was growing up,
Hmm.
he would make sure when he became a father
Right.
that he would provide that. He also told me that because of his background, a family background, single
Hmm.
parent
Hmm.
household,
Hmm.
um, that he hadn't often seen successful marriages.
Yeah.
So he was determined that he would get married one time and he would give it everything he had.
Yeah.
And so he and my mom celebrated 70 years of marriage in June of this year.
Man, that is phenomenal.
And so that, that taught me some things. I said, okay, it's about commitment.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really interesting because they have, they're both alphas, my mom and my dad. That usually doesn't work in a relationship.
Right.
So I asked my dad, I said, what's your secret? He said love is a given, and respect. He said, and clear lines of demarcation.
Right.
I said, oh yeah. He said, yep, your mom knows her role. I know my role.
Yeah.
And then he pulled me aside and said, but I got to remind your mom of her role because she's always hounding in on my role.
Yeah.
They have a sense of humor.
Yeah. Love and respect are at the very top of the list. And in fact, we talk about it in our book, in our workshops, and even on this podcast, we talked about it. Women need love, but men need respect.
Ooh,
and if the woman respects the man, he will do all, he'll fight any battle, right? He'll fight any lion, if you will, any beast and stuff to protect her if she respects him.
That is so very true. And, it needs to be said often. And because you find, I spent a lot of time on YouTube because I stopped watching regular mainstream media because, obviously it's propaganda. And what I notice is there's all these podcast shows on YouTube, and many of them talk about this manosphere, I think is the term that's used. But it basically speak on what these men have run across, that women who do not respect them in their masculinity.
Yeah.
So the men struggle in how to interact with the women. So there's a term that's coined now. It's called passport bro. I don't know if you've heard of that.
I never heard that one.
Yeah, it's hot right now in social media. Just go to YouTube and just type that in, and you'll get a ton of different shows.
Passport bro.
Passport bros.
Okay.
Where men who want respect are going anywhere but in this nation.
Okay.
Get it. They're going to the Philippines. You name the country, that's where they're going. Anywhere where they can find a woman that operates in a traditional format in terms of, and she's fine and comfortable in that.
A woman that wants to be a woman.
Thank you. And that's the other thing I jotted down. What did I put here? Man, I love the name of the show, Mastering Adam, by the way.
Thank you.
What did I put down here? Oh, men have become feminized, and women have become masculine.
Yeah.
And I don't mean in the sense that they
and they say
look masculine, but because they act masculine.
Well, not only that, they also say often that they don't need a man.
Ooh, there it is.
And then the men are saying, well, I don't need women. And that's a recipe for a civilization that will go extinct. Right?
Yes. Ooh, yes.
So now, do I need a woman to be whole and complete or whatever, or be a child of God? No, I don't. But we as a collective need to have that relationship, because that's what, that's the glue that keeps us going. That's the glue that keeps society moving forward.
Great point.
Right? If we don't have each other, male and female, then society ends. Right? So you could have two guys that love each other, whatever, or two women that so-called love each other. That is a dead end. Right? That society does not continue. So we need to have healthy relationships with for men and women. And without that, it ends.
That is so true, brothers. That's so true. One of the benefits to having had the show the number of years is I ended up being a consult. Didn't intend to, but
Yeah.
for young men who would follow the show,
Sure.
and they would reach out to me, hey brother, can we talk? And then we would be on these types of topics. They were having issues in their relationships with their wives or
Mhm.
girlfriends,
Mhm.
and they didn't understand, she don't respect me. And so I would dig in, and the side of me that's like my father, who was a
Yeah.
straight shooter.
Right.
um, I would ask them some specific questions, and then I would give, well, she don't respect you because of A, B, C, and D. And you said not providing for their families and themselves
Yeah.
is at the top of the list. And
Yeah.
well, I understand. I said, okay, well, how is one young cat, and he was a Latino. Um, in the Latino community, the men are typically very masculine.
Yeah.
And so I asked him, I said, there's 3 boys. I said, so how much money do you make? And there was a long pause. Well, see,
Well, yeah.
I was working here, but I'm not working there. And so I'm doing this. And so I said, so you have a job, but you lost your job. And I asked him specifically, how much money you make? I said, now I'm not saying you got to make a gazillion dollars.
Yeah.
So I was probing him. And what I discovered is, because, and I see this with some men, because their brides have income, their resolve to get out and hustle is lessened.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have any problem with women working. I'm not talking about that.
Right.
I don't have a problem with a woman if she's making more money, because that's not the core issue. The issue is, are you committed?
Right.
And I explained to him, I said, well, you have 3 boys, right? He says, yeah. I said, she sees you as the 4th.
Right.
He got quiet. Well, no. I said, man, how old are you? And he was in his early 30s.
Yeah.
I said, man, you should be out there. You're young enough. You can handle 3 jobs if you
Right.
have.
Right.
I said, you need to do whatever you have to do to provide and be the provider for that family. So she sees an example of a man that's committed. Because one of the things I learned is, and I know you know this, you've been married for some years, is that women look for men that have strength that they can lean on.
Right. Right.
And if they don't have that, then you get this, the
Yeah.
mouth.
Yeah.
And so I was telling him that, and he didn't understand. I said, you go out. So anyway, long story short, he got a better job.
Mm-hmm.
And because we called him and said, hey, I got a job. I said, okay, great. What about your second gig? And he went out and he got a job. He was driving for Uber, I think it was, on the side. I said, she needs to see that. When she sees that, she'll simmer down.
And she'll start respecting you.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. When my wife and I first met, okay, we've been married for 21 years last month.
All righty. Congratulations.
Thank you. When we first met, I had a job and my own place and my own car. I had all that. Right? And she did too, by the way. She had her own place, her own car, and her own stuff. But my point is that she didn't find me at my mom's house. She didn't find me on the street corner, hey girl, what's up? She didn't find me with my pants kind of halfway sagging on my butt, right? Yep. She found me working.
Yes.
All right. So we're at the top of the hour. Lonnie, you have any final closing thoughts so we can close the show out?
Oh, is it that quick, huh?
Yes, sir.
I thought we had an hour.
No, I'm sorry. Half hour.
That's all right. Yeah, I'll talk less next time. You got to invite me back.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I have a bunch of things I want to talk to you about. But no, I just want to, first of all, thank you for the opportunity. And you're touching on things that are near and dear to me. I want to encourage everyone that's listening to or watching the broadcast today to be sure and follow this brother. He is the real deal. And excuse me, and support what he's doing, whatever platform that you have, brother, that you have, that they can reach out and touch you financially, that they can do that as well. I thank you again for the opportunity. And let me just mention this, because Kevin and Neil would kill me if I didn't do this, because my job, this is part of my job.
Right.
These are the books that have been written. Kevin wrote this book called Woke Up.
Okay.
Okay. And it's a book that addresses the roots of so-called white supremacy and racism.
Turn it up a little bit so we can see it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There you go. There you go. Yeah.
It's a great book. You can find it on Amazon.
Okay.
Okay. And basically what the book does, he did an exhaustive study and he shows the roots of so-called white supremacy and racism, and all traces back to one individual.
Wow.
Dr. Charles Darwin.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Darwin. Yeah.
Darwin and his connection to Marxism, and how all the dictators and pundits back in the day that were killing a bunch of people were all fans of Charles Darwin. It's an interesting read and connects the dots to the party with the big D.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Great book.
Very good.
Second book. He just released this one. It's called DEI in 3D.
DEI in 3D. Okay.
And it addresses DEI specifically and what the agenda is, the goal, and it's designed to divide America. These are things I'm sure you talk about to your contemporaries.
Yeah.
And that's another book. It's available on Amazon as well. You can get it in hard copy or soft copy.
All right.
Okay. And then the third book, and this is written by the other co-founder, Neil Mammon. Neil wrote this book about 12, 13 years ago, but it's prophetic. And the title of the book is Jesus Was/is involved in politics. Why aren't you? Why isn't your church?
Okay.
And he was able to go in historically to talk about the season and time and history that Jesus lived in, and that he was very politically active. You don't think about that. You know,
well, he was establishing a kingdom, which is a okay. Yeah, that's a whole nother show and a whole nother topic. But it wasn't to just go along to get along. He was establishing a kingdom to replace the current kingdom.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. And our website's everyblm.com.
Okay.
Everyblm.com. You can find out about the work we're doing. These books are hot and they're getting a lot of press right now, and they're traveling all across the country doing things. And so I'm just a member of the team and just excited to be about it. And we do a podcast once a week as well, but you'll find that information on the website. Again, thank you, brother, for inviting me to your show. Anytime you want me back, man, I'm there.
All right. Appreciate it. Hey, don't drop off the line. I want to talk to you after the show.
All righty.
So, folks, thank you for tuning in to Mastering Adam. You can get our free ebook and take our free 5-minute love assessment on IamLoveBuilders.com to become a relationship MVP. That's the most valuable partner in your relationship. And remember, if you're not having fun, you're not doing it right. We'll see you on the next show.